The first thing Abigail heard was the coin purse snap shut. Not applause, not cheering. Just the dry click of leather closing on money that was not hers. Dust hung in the late August air of Bitter Creek, Colorado, turning the sunlight into a dull yellow haze. The wooden platform beneath her bare feet creaked as someone shifted their weight below. She did not cry. Her throat had gone too tight for that, 19 years old, last one standing. If you've ever been the final person waiting to be chosen, you know how long a minute can stretch. Josiah Caldwell wiped sweat from his upper lip with a handkerchief already stained brown from tobacco. His boots left dark prints across the stage as he stepped closer to her. Strong enough to scrub, he said to the men below. Doesn't complain, a lie. Abigail kept her eyes on the horizon instead of the faces in front of her. The younger boys had already been claimed. The smaller girls taken for kitchens and washrooms, she remained. Too tall for sympathy, too thin for comfort. A leftover. The crowd shifted. Someone laughed softly. Someone else spat into the dirt. Caldwell's hand pressed against her shoulder. $10, a voice rasped. Abigail's stomach tightened. Jeb Rust. She did not look at him. She knew the smell of his breath already. Gin and rot. $10, he repeated. Silence answered him. No one raised the price. The gavel lifted. The wood above her head blocked the sun for half a second, then 50. The word did not shout. It did not beg. It settled into the air like a stone dropped into still water. Caldwell froze. Jeb turned. The crowd parted. Boots stepped forward slowly through the dust. Heavy boots. Deliberate. The man did not hurry. He did not scan the faces around him. He looked only at her, tall enough to break the sunlight behind him. Dark beard rough against windburned skin, an elk-hide coat despite the heat. Gideon Hayes. The name traveled through the square in murmurs. Abigail had seen him twice before in town, once at the trading post. Once near the creek. He never lingered, never spoke. Now he stood below her. 50, he said again. Caldwell swallowed. You understand that's 5 years' labor. Gideon untied a leather pouch and dropped it onto the barrel beside the gavel. The pouch struck wood with a dull weight. Count it, he said. No anger, no show, just certainty. Caldwell peeked inside. Gold. The gavel fell hard. Sold. Abigail felt her knees weaken. This was worse. $10 meant desperation. 50 meant purpose. He stepped closer to the platform, his hand lifted toward her. Large, scarred open. Come down, he said. Not girl, not servant, just that. Her fingers hesitated in the air before touching his. His grip tightened, steady but careful. He guided her down the steps. Caldwell waved a paper behind them. The contract, burn it, Gideon answered without turning. A few men shifted uneasily. Jeb Rust's jaw tightened. Mountain man, Jeb spat. You don't know what you bought? Gideon stopped walking. He looked at Jeb. Nothing else. No threat spoken. Jeb's eyes dropped first. The square went quiet. Gideon led Abigail toward a black draft horse tied near the livery. He lifted her into the saddle as if she weighed nothing, then climbed behind her. His arms circled the reins, not her waist. The horse stepped forward. No one followed. The town shrank behind them. Dust swallowed the auction block. They rode for hours. The plains gave way to pine. Heat thinned into cool air. The horse climbed narrow trails carved into stone. Abigail's hands gripped the saddle horn until her knuckles blanched white. He did not speak, not once. Twilight deepened into purple shadows between trees. The horse stopped near a stand of tall spruce. Gideon dismounted first. He reached up. She slid down. Her legs shook. Wind cut through her thin dress. Without a word, he removed his heavy coat and placed it over her shoulders. The leather still held his warmth. Sit there, he said, nodding toward a ring of stones. He knelt to build a fire. His movements were efficient. Twigs, flint spark, smoke flame. Abigail watched him in the flicker of orange light. He kept distance. He did not stare. When the fire caught strong, he handed her a tin cup. Drink coffee, strong, sweetened. She had not tasted sugar in years. Night settled. Owls called from the dark trees. Gideon laid out pine branches and a folded blanket for her. He took the ground near the edge of the firelight. Back to a tree, rifle across his knees, she lay awake under his coat, staring at the sparks drifting into black sky. Why $50? Why her? Above the crackle of burning wood, she heard him shift at once, then stillness. The wind carried a distant sound, not owl, not wolf, hoofbeats, faint far below on the mountain road. Gideon's head lifted slightly, his eyes opened. He did not move, but he listened, and he did not look surprised. The hoofbeats did not fade. They climbed, slow, steady, not a lost traveler, not a wandering hunter. Gideon stood without a word. The rifle came into his hands as naturally as breath. Stay behind me, he said quietly. Abigail pushed herself upright, the oversized elk coat slipping from one shoulder. Cold air rushed in. The fire snapped louder as wind shifted through the trees. The horse below snorted. Another hoof struck stone. Closer now. Gideon stepped into the shadows beyond the firelight. He did not crouch. He did not hide. He waited. Abigail's fingers tightened in the coat until the leather creaked. Through the trees she saw movement. 3 riders. Dark against the rising moon, one laughed. The sound carried sharp and ugly through the mountain air. Jib Rust. She knew the rhythm of that voice. The riders stopped near the lower bend in the trail. A lantern lifted. Light swayed between trunks. "Hayes!" Jeb shouted. "We know you're up there!" Gideon did not answer. The wind shifted again. One of the men coughed, another spat. Boots hit dirt. They were climbing on foot now. Abigail's breath grew shallow. The mountain felt smaller suddenly, the trees no longer protective, just shadows. Gideon leaned slightly toward her without turning. "When I say run, you run uphill. There's a rock shelf 50 yards above. You stay there." Her throat worked. No, it came out thin but firm. His jaw tightened. "This isn't your fight. They came because of me." A branch snapped below. The lantern glow split into 2 as the men separated. Gideon's voice dropped lower. "They came because they thought I was alone." A figure broke through the tree line. Tex Higgins, tall, hat tilted back. Revolver loose in his hand. Behind him, Clayton Briggs held the lantern high. Jeb Rust lagged a step back, shotgun balanced crookedly on his shoulder. "Well now," Jeb called. "Look at that cozy camp." Tex grinned when he saw Abigail. Even prettier up close. Gideon stepped fully into the firelight. The flames cast harsh shadows across the scars along his neck. "Turn around," he said calmly. Jeb barked a laugh. "You paid 50 in raw gold. We just want the rest." "There is no rest." Clayton lowered the lantern toward the ground. "You expect us to believe that?" Gideon lifted the rifle slowly. "Not aiming yet, just holding." Tex raised his revolver halfway. "Easy," Jeb muttered. "No need for noise." The forest held its breath. Abigail felt it. Even the wind paused. Gideon spoke without looking back. Now, she did not argue. She ran. Boots slipping on pine needles, branches tearing at her sleeves. Behind her, a shot exploded. Birds burst from the trees. Another shot answered. She reached the rock shelf and dropped behind it, heart hammering against stone. Gunfire cracked below. Wood splintered. Someone cursed. The lantern shattered. Darkness swallowed the slope except for the fading glow of the campfire. Abigail pressed her palms against the cold rock. Then a scream, short, cut off. Silence, then boots pounding uphill. Toward her, she scrambled backward. A shape lunged over the ledge. Tex Higgins, blood streaked across his cheek. One eye wide. "Thought you could hide." He grabbed her ankle. She kicked wildly. Her heels struck his jaw. He swore and pulled harder. She clawed at the ground until her fingers found a loose stone. She swung it downward. It struck his temple. Not enough. His grip tightened. Below, another rifle shot thundered. Tex flinched for a second. Just long enough. She wrenched free and scrambled higher. Tex climbed after her. Faster, she turned. There was nowhere else to go. He smiled through blood. Then his body jerked backward. A bullet tore through his shoulder from below. Tex fell sideways down the slope. Gideon climbed into view, rifle still smoking. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. He took her wrist, checked quickly. Then pulled her down the hill with him. Clayton Briggs lay near the trees, unmoving. Jeb Rust was nowhere. Gideon's eyes scanned the darkness. He ran. A branch cracked somewhere deeper in the forest. Retreating footsteps. Gideon listened, did not chase. Instead, he turned back to the camp. The fire had nearly burned out. He kicked dirt over the remaining flames. "We move," he said. "Now they won't stop." He grabbed the bedroll and slung it across the horse's saddle. Abigail climbed up without waiting. The mountain trail swallowed them as they rode higher into thinner air. Behind them, somewhere below, a wounded man groaned, and another man ran through the trees carrying a grudge he would not forget. The moon rose pale over the peaks. Gideon did not slow. He did not speak, but his eyes never stopped scanning the darkness ahead. Snow fell 3 days later, not gentle flakes, hard white sheets driven sideways by mountain wind. The higher pass Gideon chose disappeared behind them before noon. The world narrowed to hoarse breath and blowing ice. Abigail's fingers ached despite the gloves he had given her that morning. Gideon rode close behind, one hand steady on the reins, the other resting near the rifle across his saddle. They did not speak. Wind swallowed words. By dusk they reached the hidden valley. The cabin stood dark against the white ground, no smoke from the chimney. Gideon slid down first. His boots sank deep. He scanned the tree line. Tracks crossed the snow near the porch. Fresh. More than one man. He touched Abigail's knee. "Stay." She stayed. He approached the door slowly. One hand pushed it open. The other held the rifle tight. The hinges groaned. Inside, the cabin was torn apart. Shelves knocked sideways. A chair broken near the hearth. Books scattered across the floor. The iron stove cold. Abigail stepped in behind him. Her breath fogged in the frozen air. On the far wall, carved deep into the log beside the window, were 3 letters. JR cut hard with a knife. Gideon's jaw tightened. He walked to the back table. A sack of flour had been ripped open and spilled, but nothing else taken, no gold, no supplies missing, just damage. A message. "He wants you angry," Abigail said quietly. Gideon did not answer. He knelt near the hearth and struck flint against steel. Sparks caught. Flame rose slowly. Heat began pushing back the cold. Outside, the wind built stronger. Snow sealed the valley path behind them. They were alone now, but not safe. Night deepened. Abigail swept broken wood into a pile. She stacked fallen books carefully, one by one. Gideon repaired the doorframe with steady hands, hammer, nails. Wood set back into place, no wasted motion. Later, when the stove glowed orange again, he cleaned his rifle at the table, oilcloth sliding along the barrel. Abigail watched the firelight dance across the scars on his neck. "You could take me down to Silverton," she said. "Leave me there." He kept working. "No, he will keep coming." Yes. Silence settled again, not heavy, just real. She stepped closer. "He is not the only man who knows how to follow tracks." Gideon looked up. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Calculation. Snow hit the window in sudden gusts. The storm had locked the mountains. Jeb Rust would not climb through that. Not tonight. But when the snow thinned, he would return. Gideon stood and moved toward the door. He opened it a crack. Wind howled in. He studied the white's slope, then shut it again. In the morning, they worked without speaking. He repaired the lean-to. She organized supplies in tighter order. He checked the traps along the valley edge. She followed, learning, watching. By afternoon, the storm eased. Clouds thinned. Blue sky cut through white peaks. Abigail stood near the edge of the frozen lake. Her reflection trembled in the thin ice. Behind her, Gideon approached quietly. "Tracks," he said. She turned. Fresh prints near the lower ridge. "Not last night's. New, one man, walking, not riding." He had waited for the storm to cover his approach. Jeb Rust. Gideon's shoulders squared. Abigail stepped beside him. "No cellar this time," she said. He did not argue. They moved uphill together. The wind carried a faint whistle, a taunting tune. Jeb stepped from behind a pine, shotgun resting loose in his hands. "You should have killed me," he called. Snow crunched under his boots. "You run out of places to hide up here." Gideon lifted the rifle slowly. Jeb shifted his aim toward Abigail. "Drop it." Gideon did not drop it. The mountain went still. A hawk circled high above. Abigail bent, her fingers closing around a length of split firewood half buried in snow. Jeb's eyes flicked toward her. That was enough. Gideon fired first. The shot cracked through thin air. Jeb staggered backward, shotgun slipping from his grip. He fell hard into the snow. Silence followed. Snowflakes drifted lightly now. Gideon lowered the rifle but did not step closer until he was sure. Jeb did not move. Abigail stood still, breath visible in front of her face. The wind softened. The lake below reflected sunlight again. Gideon walked back toward the cabin. Abigail followed. No words passed